Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most terrifying silent killers, stroke. According to the World Health Organization, over 15 million people suffer a stroke each year worldwide. In the United States alone, nearly 800,000 cases occur annually. But what's truly alarming isn't the number. It's the fact that many of these strokes could have been prevented if people had recognized the early warning signs their bodies were sending. No loud alarms, no clear warnings, just subtle signals. Easy to ignore, but potentially life-saving. Don't take your eyes off this video, because noticing just one early sign might save you or a loved one from paralysis, memory loss, or worse. This isn't a scare tactic. This is life-saving information. Let's get started.
It hit me hardest when I walked into Mr. Thompson's hospital room. He was a sprightly 74-year-old who'd been dancing at his granddaughter's birthday party just 2 weeks before. No chronic illness, no smoking, no drinking by all accounts. He was what we doctors like to call the lucky ones. But he wasn't lucky that day. When I saw the right side of his face drooping and his speech slurring into incoherence, I knew stroke. And here's what shocked even me. The culprit wasn't a clogged artery or untreated high blood pressure. It was something much more ordinary, something you might be doing right now, something he thought was innocent, a harmless bedtime ritual. But it increased his stroke risk by over 60%, and it could be doing the same to you. Before I reveal what it is, let me ask you something personal. What's the last thing you do before you close your eyes at night? Do you scroll through your phone a bit, watch a show, have a little snack, or maybe like Mr. Thompson, you light a cigarette or vape outside thinking, it helps me relax. He did that every night for 40 years, just one smoke before bed. That was his peace. But peace can be deceptive. According to a large study published just last year, seniors who smoke even occasionally right before bed are 67% more likely to experience a stroke in their sleep or early morning hours. Why? Because nicotine and combustion affect blood vessels in a very specific way. They narrow them rapidly, spike blood pressure, and disturb the body's natural circadian rhythm. And it's not just cigarettes. Even clean alternatives like e-cigarettes, hookahs, and herbal smokes can do similar damage to aging vessels. You might be thinking, well, I don't smoke, so I'm safe. But here's the thing, Sir, stroke doesn't discriminate. And the bigger danger is often hidden in habits we don't even question anymore. The brain, especially yours after 60, relies on a stable internal environment. Disruptions in blood pressure, poor sleep, inflammation, dehydration, they all add up. And if you're doing anything that worsens those factors before bed, you're unknowingly putting yourself in harm's way. Let me tell you why nighttime is so critical. During deep sleep, your body is supposed to relax, regenerate, and stabilize. Blood pressure drops. Brain activity slows. But when you interfere with this cycle through stimulants, blue light, alcohol, or even stress, you're disrupting the very mechanism that keeps your blood flowing smoothly through narrow, fragile vessels. In fact, the American Heart Association published a warning about nighttime strokes being particularly deadly precisely because they're harder to detect early. They often happen quietly. You don't feel them. You just don't wake up the same or at all. One of the most heartbreaking cases I encountered was a 69-year-old woman who always fell asleep with the TV on. She thought the noise helped her, but the overstimulation was wrecking her sleep cycles. One morning she woke up unable to speak. She had suffered a silent stroke in her language center, and to this day she can only form a few words at a time. Her memory is intact, but she can't express herself. Imagine knowing everything but not being able to say it. I know this is heavy, but it matters, because stroke doesn't just rob you of your body, it steals your independence, your confidence, your laughter. I've seen strong men weep because they can't lift a spoon anymore. I've watched wives feed their husbands like infants, even though just weeks before they were debating politics at the dinner table. And so, I want to tell you, not as a YouTuber, but as someone who's held the hand of too many people after it was too late, please pay attention to your bedtime habits. Your body doesn't bounce back the way it did when you were 30. Even one wrong habit repeated daily is like a crack in the foundation of your home. You may not notice it today, but one day the roof collapses. I read a piece by the National Institutes of Health that said something profound. Stroke prevention is not about emergency care. It's about ordinary choices made consistently. Isn't that something not emergency? Ordinary. Your health doesn't demand heroism, it demands attention. So if you're here listening to this, you're already taking the first step. You're asking the right questions. That's rare. Most people drift through their habits without ever stopping to ask, is this serving me or is this slowly killing me? I want you to reflect for a moment. What are you doing every night that you believe is harmless but might not be? Could it be that late night glass of wine? That second helping of salty food? That hour scrolling through the news on your tablet in bed? Each of these has been linked scientifically and repeatedly to vascular strain in the elderly. A 2021 Harvard study tracked over 3,000 older adults for 5 years and found that those with the most disrupted sleep, especially due to screen time and late-night stimulation, had a 47% higher chance of transient ischemic attacks, often called mini-strokes, which can be precursors to the real thing. And I'll say this plainly, I'd rather you feel a bit bored before bed than risk waking up with slurred speech or not waking up at all. What would you rather lose, a little entertainment or your ability to walk, speak, and hold the ones you love? Never miss advice tailored specifically for you. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment below, if not type 0. Your feedback will help me create content that truly supports your health and well-being. I want you to picture this. It's around 10:30 p.m. You've brushed your teeth, maybe taken your medication, and now you're easing into bed. The room is quiet, the lights are off, and your body is craving rest, but then almost without thinking, you reach over to your nightstand. You tap on your phone. Maybe you check a few messages. Maybe it's a quick peek at the news or a couple of funny videos just to unwind, but that's when the damage begins quietly, invisibly. You see, sir, your brain isn't a light switch. It doesn't just flick from on to off. It's a delicate orchestra, especially as you age, and the transition into sleep is one of its most vulnerable phases. When you expose your eyes to blue light from screens late at night, your brain gets confused. It thinks it's daytime. And once that internal clock is thrown off, that beautiful thing called the circadian rhythm, everything from your blood pressure to your blood sugar gets out of sync. I can't tell you how many older patients I've treated who complain of poor sleep. They say things like, "Doctor, I don't sleep more than 4 hours," or "I wake up at 3 a.m. and can't fall back asleep." When we dig deeper, they always say the same thing: they're glued to a screen right before bed. Tablets, phones, TVs. These aren't just modern conveniences, they're silent disruptors. But this is more than about poor sleep. You need to understand what disrupted sleep does inside your blood vessels. When you sleep poorly, your cortisol, that's your stress hormone, stays elevated. That keeps your blood vessels tight. Your heart rate remains higher than it should be. Your blood pressure doesn't get its usual nighttime dip. And this creates the perfect storm, especially in elderly arteries already stiff from years of wear and tear. A study from the Mayo Clinic recently confirmed that seniors with chronic sleep disruption have a 54% greater risk of cardiovascular incidents, including stroke. And if you're combining that with a sedentary lifestyle, poor hydration, or high salt intake, the risk grows even more. It's a recipe for disaster baked slowly and served in silence. You know what's even more alarming? Many elderly folks don't even recognize the early signs of stroke, a little weakness in the arm. "Oh, I probably slept funny." Slight dizziness. "Maybe I stood up too fast." Slurred words. "I'm just tired." But no, these are your body's cries for help. And if you've been regularly disrupting your sleep cycle with screen time, alcohol, or stress before bed, you've been weakening your defenses without realizing it. I want to tell you about a woman named Linda. She was 72, retired librarian, loved books, loved crossword puzzles. But ever since her husband passed, she started relying on television to fill the silence at night. She said it helped her feel less alone. She'd fall asleep with the TV on every night for 5 years. But over time, her health changed. Her blood pressure crept up. She felt more fatigued. Her memory got fuzzy. One evening while reading, she noticed the words on the page looked crooked. She closed one eye, then the other. Nothing helped. She brushed it off. 2 days later, she collapsed in the bathroom. Minor stroke. We caught it in time, but it could have been worse. When we reviewed her habits, her biggest issue wasn't diet or smoking, it was sleep. Or more specifically, the lack of proper deep, uninterrupted sleep. I told her gently, "Your brain needs darkness, Linda. It needs quiet. It needs a clear signal that it's time to heal, not be entertained. And now I'm saying it to you. Your brain, your heart, your blood vessels. They are begging for consistency, for rhythm, for rest. Don't wait for a warning sign. Don't assume you're okay just because you feel fine today. Stroke isn't always preceded by dramatic symptoms. Sometimes it just happens, and the damage is done before you even wake up. There's a professor I admire greatly, Dr. Elaine Morrison from UCLA's Center for Geriatric Neurology. She once said in a seminar I attended, "Sleep is not rest, it is repair. And without it, every system in the body, especially in the elderly, runs at a deficit." That stuck with me. Because you're not just getting older, you're running on decades of effort. Your body's been through a lot, carrying children, working hard, facing stress, losing people. Don't you think it deserves a peaceful, undisturbed night? So I challenge you, truly starting tonight, make a change. Turn off all screens an hour before bed. Instead, sit quietly. Breathe. Reflect. Listen to music if you like, but keep it soft. Let your body wind down like nature intended. Your blood vessels will thank you. I once had a patient who replaced his nightly TV routine with a warm bath and a 20-minute meditation. Within 1 month, his blood pressure dropped from 145/92 to 126/84. No medications changed, just bedtime habits. I saw it with my own eyes. And you, sir, you can do the same. Because your health isn't written in stone. It's written in the small choices you make every single night. Let me bring you into the life of Harold, a quiet man, 76 years old, with hands weathered from decades of building furniture. He wasn't one for drama. Didn't complain much, lived a simple life. But one day he came into my clinic holding his left hand with his right. "It's not moving right," he said softly, embarrassed. "I think I slept on it wrong." When I asked him a few questions, he mentioned something that made my heart sink. "I've been waking up with headaches. A little confused too sometimes. Only in the morning though. By lunch I'm okay. Sir, let me tell you something clearly. Morning confusion in the elderly is not always normal. Waking up with a headache or with one arm feeling heavy or with your words not coming out right, these are not just signs of aging. They can be the earliest, subtlest signs of a stroke. And when I asked Harold what his evenings were like, the pattern became painfully familiar. A late-night snack, always something salty like chips or deli meats, followed by a tall glass of wine while watching the news. That was his way of shutting off. Every night. But here's what many don't realize, that kind of shutdown is not the kind your body needs. Especially not with salt, alcohol, and stress hormones churning in your system right before you sleep. Salt increases blood volume. Alcohol disrupts your heart rhythm. And nightly news that keeps your nervous system in a state of quiet alarm. It's the perfect recipe for blood pressure spikes in your sleep, which is exactly when your body is supposed to be relaxing and restoring. In Harold's case, we ran a brain scan, and there it was, a minor ischemic stroke that had happened overnight. Small? Yes, but permanent. He could no longer carve wood the way he used to. His fingers didn't obey him fully anymore. He cried when he told me my hands were my life. That's when I want to look you in the eye and say, what do your evenings look like? Be honest with yourself. Because if they look like Harold's, or even a little like his, a combination of stress, poor food choices, and disrupted sleep, then I need you to consider this your wake-up call. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found that consuming high-sodium foods within 2 hours of bedtime can cause a nighttime surge in blood pressure that persists into the morning. And it's in that early morning window between 5 and 8 a.m. that stroke risk skyrockets for seniors. Your arteries, especially as you age, don't tolerate sudden changes very well. They get stiffer, less flexible, less forgiving. That means if you go to bed, bloated, stimulated, and wired, your blood vessels can't do what they need to do. And that pressure, that inflammation, it builds quietly like a kettle on the stove until it bursts. There's a term we use in medicine, non-dipping hypertension. It means your blood pressure doesn't drop at night the way it should. And it's far more common in older adults who engage in unhealthy bedtime rituals. This condition increases your stroke risk by over 70%. That's not a guess. That's a published finding in multiple studies from Europe and the US. And the most common cause evening behaviors that push your body into overdrive instead of into healing. You may think I've done this for years and nothing happened, but I've seen too many patients who said the same until something did happen. Stroke doesn't give warnings like heart disease sometimes does. No chest pain, no breathlessness. It just takes. 1 minute you're sipping your wine and watching The Late Show. The next, you're waking up with your mouth hanging, unable to move half your body, trying to scream, but the words won't come. I don't say this to scare you. I say this because I care enough to be honest. Let me tell you what helped Harold after his stroke. We built a new routine. Light dinner by 6 p.m., lower in sodium, a walk outside even just to the end of the driveway and back to regulate his blood sugar and get a little fresh air. He traded wine for chamomile tea. We cut out late-night news and replaced it with soft music and a good book. No screens past 8 or 0 p.m. In 3 months, he reported better sleep, steadier blood pressure, and most beautiful of all, a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He may not carve furniture anymore, but he's regained control of his body. His hands still tremble a bit, but they tremble with purpose, now not regret. And I want the same for you. Not just survival, but control. Not just the absence of disease, but the presence of dignity. You can reclaim your nights. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary, not a battlefield. Everything you do in that final hour before bed should be a gentle preparation for healing. You deserve rest that restores, not habits that destroy. Please ask yourself tonight, is what I'm doing before bed helping my body or hurting it? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, then it's time. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. There's something I wish more people knew, especially older folks like yourself, who have spent a lifetime caring for others. You've raised children, worked long days, endured losses, adapted to changes, and kept going. But now in this stage of life, the care has to turn inward. It's not selfish. It's survival. And one of the simplest yet most profound changes you can make starts with your bedtime rituals. I want you to think of your pre-sleep routine as a kind of preparation for surgery. I know that sounds dramatic, but hear me out. Your body undergoes incredible repairs while you sleep. Your brain processes memory, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure dips, and inflammation is gently reduced throughout your body if you allow it to. But that kind of healing doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you create the right environment. I once treated a couple, Maria and George. Both were in their early 70s. George was a quiet man, former accountant. Maria was vibrant, opinionated, full of energy. But both had one thing in common: nightly insomnia and morning fatigue. George had borderline high blood pressure. Maria had type 2 diabetes. They said they were doing everything right, taking medications, eating better, even walking in the mornings. But still, George had a mini-stroke one morning. He woke up dizzy, slurring his words with one side of his mouth drooping. Fortunately, they came to the hospital quickly, and the damage was reversible. But when I reviewed their habits, the answer was clear. Maria liked to fall asleep watching crime dramas on TV. "It relaxes me," she said. George would scroll through news articles in bed, always with a little scotch in his hand. "Just one glass, Doc," he said, "to help me sleep." And like so many others, they were sabotaging their own healing. I explained it to them like this. Imagine preparing a garden to grow flowers. You wouldn't pour oil on the soil, shine a flashlight on the sprouts, and throw salt in the mix. But that's exactly what we do to our bodies with late-night alcohol screen exposure and stress-inducing media. The brain, particularly after 60, needs stillness to enter deep sleep cycles. It needs darkness to produce melatonin. It needs quiet to lower adrenaline and cortisol. A recent article I read from the National Institutes of Health shared something shocking. Older adults who drink alcohol within 2 hours of bedtime experience a 67% increase in disrupted REM sleep, leading to higher stroke risk, particularly in individuals with pre-existing vascular conditions. And yes, even just a glass or two. Because the aging liver processes alcohol more slowly. That means it lingers in your bloodstream, affecting your heart rhythm, breathing, and blood pressure while you're sleeping. And when you combine that with stress, even the small kind from watching intense TV or doom scrolling the news, your sympathetic nervous system stays active. That's your fight or flight system. And let me tell you, the last thing you want is your heart and blood vessels in fight mode at 11 p.m. So what can you do instead? I often tell my older patients to create what I call a healing hour before sleep. I've seen it change lives. No phone, no TV, no stressful thoughts. You dim the lights, drink something warm like ginger or lemon balm tea. You breathe slowly, maybe with soft classical music in the background. Light a lavender candle if you like. Then you lie down in a cool, quiet, dark room without distractions. That 1 hour is more powerful than any pill I can prescribe. It tells your body the war is over for today. You are safe. You are allowed to rest. You may not believe me now, but I've had patients who've done this and reported major changes even in the way they think and feel. One man, 68, told me he started dreaming again for the first time in 20 years. His memory improved. His energy came back. Another woman found that her morning blood pressure readings, which were always high, dropped by 10 points within weeks, all because she stopped eating late, stopped drinking wine before bed, and stopped staring at the television to distract herself from loneliness. That's something we have to speak about too, sir. Loneliness. Because many of you aren't just staring at a screen out of habit. You're doing it to fill a silence that hurts. I understand that. I truly do. I've had elderly patients tell me that nighttime is when the grief is loudest, that the darkness feels heavier when no one is there to share it. But I want you to understand healing yourself is not the same as abandoning your memories. You don't have to carry pain in your chest every night just to remember someone. You honor them more by staying alive, by staying well, by getting rest. And if you're struggling emotionally at night, that's all the more reason to be kind to your body. Don't punish it with alcohol or stress. Don't keep it alert with light and noise. Let it be still. You've survived this long. You've made it through all life's storms. Now your nights should be sacred, soft, gentle. You deserve that. Please tonight ask yourself, what kind of rest do I want my heart to have? And then give it exactly that. You know, sometimes the hardest part isn't making the change. It's believing that the change still matters. I've spoken with so many people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, who shrug when I talk about prevention. At my age, what difference does it make, they say. But I'll look them straight in the eyes and say, sir, it makes all the difference in the world. I once worked with a retired firefighter named Joe. He was 79, tough as nails, built like a brick wall, but his spirit was crumbling. He came to me after a mild stroke left his right leg weaker. He could still walk, but he dragged his foot a little. He hated it. I feel like I'm half the man I used to be, he told me. Joe was furious at his body. He didn't want to stretch or rest or drink his beet juice. He wanted to get back to what he was before the stroke, before the sleepless nights, before the fear that crept in after dark. I told him gently, Joe, you may not get back the old version of you, but we can build something even better, wiser, calmer, stronger in the places that matter most. That began a slow, beautiful transformation. It started with his evenings. No more whiskey after dinner, no more shouting at the late-night news. He swapped his habit for warm peppermint tea, a good chair, and sometimes just sitting on the porch listening to the wind. Within 3 weeks, his blood pressure lowered by 15 points. His wife told me she hadn't seen him sleep that deeply in years. Science supports what I witnessed with Joe. The Cleveland Clinic recently released findings showing that individuals over 65 who establish a consistent wind-down routine with a set bedtime, reduced screen exposure, and no alcohol experience a 35% reduction in nighttime blood pressure spikes. That's huge. For someone with even minor plaque buildup in the arteries, that's the difference between peace and a sudden stroke. You might be thinking, but I've never had high blood pressure. Please don't be lulled by that. High blood pressure isn't always obvious. You don't always feel it. In fact, the most dangerous kind is often silent. You may be walking around right now with pressure that spikes only at night when no one's watching when you're asleep. And you won't know it until something irreversible happens. That's why your nighttime behavior is critical. And I don't mean just what you avoid like salty snacks, wine, or phone scrolling. I mean what you do instead. One of my elderly patients, Ms. Diane, 72, started a routine where she dimmed the lights an hour before bed and listened to soft jazz while doing 5 minutes of stretching. Nothing dramatic, just gentle movement to relax her joints and signal to her body that the day was ending. Within a month, her morning dizziness was gone. She stopped waking up with headaches. Her sleep improved so dramatically that her mood lifted too. She told me, "Doctor, I don't feel like I'm just waiting to die anymore. I feel like I'm living again." That's the power of these choices. They are small, but they are sacred. Because here's the truth. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of your age. You may not control everything, but you do control what time you turn off the TV. You control whether your dinner is light and nourishing or heavy and damaging. You control whether you take 5 minutes to breathe deeply or keep pushing your nervous system until it snaps. And those choices, they ripple. They change your brain chemistry. They stabilize your heartbeat. They lower the pressure in your arteries. They protect your blood vessels from rupture. And yes, they reduce your risk of stroke. Not by 2% or 3%, but by massive amounts. As I mentioned earlier, studies have shown as much as a 67% increase in stroke risk tied directly to poor nighttime behavior. That's not a coincidence. That's your warning. If you're someone who wakes up tired with your mouth dry or a little confused, don't ignore that. If your partner says you snore loudly or stop breathing in your sleep, don't dismiss it. If you notice swelling in your feet or your heart races at night, that's your body waving a flag. It's not trying to scare you. It's asking you to change. So what can you do starting tonight? Eat no later than 6:30 or 7:00 p.m., especially avoiding salty or processed foods. Stay away from alcohol, especially in the 2 hours before bed. Turn off the TV, the phone, and anything that keeps your brain buzzing. Dim the lights. Let the evening get quiet. Drink a calming tea, maybe one with magnesium or lemon balm. Gently stretch. Take a warm shower or soak your feet. Read something kind, something that lifts your spirit. Let your body feel the signal you are safe. You are home. You can rest now. That may sound simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. You don't need another pill. You need a rhythm. You need stillness. And you need to believe like Joe, like Diane, that change is still possible. Not because you're afraid of dying, but because you still have something to live for. Please, sir, madam, tonight let your heart rest in peace, not just when you're gone, but while you're still here. I want to leave you with something honest, not hopeful fluff, not motivational quotes, but something that has anchored my care for the elderly for years. You are not fragile because of your age. You are powerful because of it. You've lived through war, heartbreak, change, and chaos. You've buried friends, held grandchildren, and perhaps even stood by your partner's hospital bed, wondering if you'd have to say goodbye. That kind of life doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. And wisdom is what I'm asking you to act on tonight. There's a reason we talk about bedtime stroke risk and routines, and it's not just because of science. It's because the time after 60 is sacred, and many of you don't know how close you've come to losing it. I once sat beside a woman named Carol. She was 74, used to be a teacher full of wit and warmth. She came in after what doctors call a silent stroke. No major symptoms, just a strange sensation in her hand and a few words that came out wrong one morning. She thought she was tired. It turned out part of her brain had lost oxygen for a few minutes. A narrow escape. What caused it? Her blood pressure spiked at 3:00 a.m., a time when ideally her body should have been in its most relaxed state. But her heart was struggling. She'd been staying up every night since her husband passed away, drinking wine, rewatching old home videos. She told me it helped her cope. I told her gently, "Carol, your grief deserves space, but your body deserves peace." I asked her to try something new. I said, "Instead of reliving the pain every night, what if you write him a letter, just one paragraph, and then close the book and rest?" She did. Every night for a month. She wrote her memories, her love, her sorrow, and then she stopped watching the videos. She started sleeping deeper. Her blood pressure came down. Her thoughts became clearer. Her soul softened. She told me through tears, "I think I'm learning how to say goodnight to him, and not just goodbye." That's the level of healing we're talking about here. And it starts with a habit that seems so innocent, what you do before bed. Don't underestimate it. Your pre-sleep rituals are either healing you or slowly unraveling you. And it's not just about strokes. Did you know that poor sleep habits double your risk for dementia, or that nighttime spikes in cortisol, the stress hormone, have been linked to increased belly fat, memory issues, even weakened immunity? The University of California conducted a long-term study tracking seniors who consistently went to bed after midnight and used devices in bed. The results: not only were they more prone to cardiovascular events like strokes, but they also reported higher levels of anxiety and depression. Their bodies never got the full reset that deep sleep offers, and over time it added up. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing it because you deserve to know how much your choices matter, how deeply they shape your future. Let me ask you, what do you want the next 10 years to feel like? Do you want to wake up with energy? Do you want to remember where you put your keys? Do you want to walk without fear of falling? Do you want to stay in your own home, not in a care facility? Then you must take care of the body that will carry you there. Tonight I invite you to make a promise to yourself, not to me, to you, that from now on your nights will no longer be chaotic, stressful, or destructive, that you will treat your evening hours like holy ground, that you will protect your rest like it's the most precious gift you can offer your heart. Because it is. Your brain needs that slow, uninterrupted sleep to clean out the waste proteins that build up during the day, proteins that, if left to linger, increase your risk of Alzheimer's. Your heart needs that steady rhythm of rest to reset blood pressure and reduce the strain on your vessels. Your lungs need the deeper breaths that only come when you're fully relaxed. Your gut, your joints, your muscles, all of them depend on this time. So if you've been telling yourself it's too late to change, I want to gently challenge that tonight. It is never too late to love your body back to life. And if you're feeling alone on this journey, know that you're not. Thousands of others just like you are watching this, feeling the same fear, facing the same struggles. Comment below. Share your thoughts, your habits, your concerns. Let others know they're not alone. I read your messages. I truly do. And if this message touched you, if it opened something inside, please subscribe to this channel. I'm here for you every step of the way. I don't just talk about health. I walk with people through it. And you, sir, you, ma'am, you are not finished yet. You've still got something to protect your mind, your memories, your independence. So tonight, please, no alcohol, no screens, no stress. Let peace in. Because health after 60 isn't just about keeping your heart beating, it's about keeping your soul at peace.